The Krispy Kreme donut machine. Want to see how it works? Let's take a look at the machinery involved and each step of the process along the way. The donut has its origins back to the 1800s. The shape of the donut with the hole in the middle is because they learned that the donut cooks a lot more evenly. There are a lot of good donuts out there, but the one I'll be focusing on today is the Krispy Kreme donut. The first Krispy Kreme store was started in 1937 by a man named Vernon Rudolph. This was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in the United States. As of the year 2024, they have over 350 locations in the United States, and they've now expanded to more than 30 different countries. This store is what's known as a factory store. Let's take a look inside. They make the donuts on this giant machine, and plenty of the donuts are sold and eaten right here in the store. Some of the donuts, though, are packaged up and shipped to local grocery stores and gas stations nearby. So you can get your donuts elsewhere, but my favorite place is to come directly here where they are made. And one of the best parts is that they have this giant glass wall that lets you see the entire process. But it wasn't always done this way. At first, making the Krispy Kreme donuts was a bit more of a manual process, and I'm sure it took a lot of work. Back in 1937, it was just a small factory that would make the donuts and then ship them out to other stores in the area. But people on the street could smell the donuts and kept stopping by. As the story goes, they cut a hole in the wall to serve the donuts directly to the customers. This was an instant success. The challenge now was to make enough donuts to serve the growing number of customers. They invented a machine in the 1950s called the Crispy Automatic Ring King Jr. It could make the donuts almost by itself. The ingredients are mixed in here, and then the dough comes out into the hot oil, and it's already in the shape of a donut. At just the right time, the paddles flip the donuts over to cook on the other side. Then they are brought out of the oil to cool. This tiny machine could churn out 720 donuts per hour. It's a big part of the reason that Krispy Kreme was so successful in the early days. Another benefit is that the donuts were also made consistently between the growing number of Krispy Kreme locations. Starting in the 1960s, the process improved and expanded quite a bit. The machine today is a lot more efficient and modernized with computers. It can churn out up to 3,000 donuts an hour. From the start of the process all the way to the end, it takes about an hour to finish a batch of donuts. Think about all the Krispy Kreme locations worldwide making donuts every day. That's a lot of donuts. I mean, a lot. I hope you're hungry. The donuts are usually made twice per day, once in the morning and once in the evening, but each store might do it a little different. On the outside of the store, they have the famous hot light, which lets you know when the machine is making hot donuts that are ready to eat. Normally, you can watch from behind the glass, but for this animation, we're going to get even closer to see how this works. Here's an overview of the parts of the machine: the mixer, the extruder, the proofer, the fryer, the glaze waterfall, the retail curve, and the cooling tunnel. There's a lot of different parts here. We'll go through this step by step. Let's start at the very beginning of the process at the back of the store. First, the ingredients for the donuts. They come in these massive bags that are shipped to each Krispy Kreme factory store. This is combined into the mixer along with water and yeast to create the dough. The temperature needs to be regulated as it's mixed. This is the job of the cooling unit right above. This is the hopper. The dough will go in here after it's mixed. A worker will come over and do this by hand. The dough needs to sit in there for about 10 minutes. Right above is the crane. This will come down and lift up the hopper and then position it right over the extruder. And the dough falls right in. Now the extruder is proprietary, which means that Krispy Kreme doesn't give away the exact details on how it works, but we at least have a rough idea. After the lid is firmly closed, Air pressure is used to squeeze the dough out of the bottom already in the shape of a ring. Notice how there is no need to cut a hole in the donut. It's already shaped that way. The donut rings fall onto a steel grate called a flight. Next, the donuts need to rise. That happens in a large box called a proofer, or proof box. These donuts go for a very slow ride on a conveyor belt. They stay in there for more than 30 minutes, going up and down several times. The chain goes over several sprockets on top and on bottom. Inside the proofer, there is a box which blows hot and humid air. The heat and humidity activates the yeast in the dough, causing the donuts to proof, or in other words, expand. This is going to take a while, so let's fast forward a little bit. At the end of the proofer, the donuts have expanded and now they are ready to cook. For all this time, the flights have been hanging down so the donuts stay on. Watch what happens at the end. The flight comes over, hits the guide pieces on both sides, which causes it to tip, and the donuts fall off. This is the fryer. It is filled with hot oil, which is actually just vegetable shortening. Another conveyor belt with metal rods causes the donuts to slowly keep moving down the line. Not every donut will come out perfect. A worker will need to occasionally discard a donut. But since this is animation, let's pretend they're all perfect. How about that? Down below is the shortening container. This pump on the side cycles the shortening up to where the donuts are. There are heating elements directly below the shortening to keep it hot so it can cook the donuts. After about 45 seconds, they reach the rotating arm, which is partially hidden. This is the part that flips the donut over so it can now cook on the other side. After another 45 seconds on the other side, the donuts are cooked to perfection. And donuts are slowly brought up out of the shortening. Let me just point out that right underneath the fryer is the electric box. It's like the brains of the machine. The donuts will now have a chance to cool before the next step, which is the glaze waterfall. If the donuts are too hot when they get here, the glaze won't stick right. This is why it's really important to give the donuts a chance to cool off. Beneath the conveyor belt is the glaze tank. We don't know the exact recipe, but you can bet there's sugar in there. The hose pump brings the glaze up and over top of the donuts. It's really important to have a good flow of glaze through the hose so that there are no gaps in the waterfall. We want all the donuts to get coated evenly. Excess glaze falls back into the glaze tank to then be cycled back through to the next donuts. The section after the glaze waterfall, this has a tendency to build up glaze on the metal bars. At the end of the conveyor, it actually goes down into a tank of water to be cleaned. As the glaze dries, the donuts make their way to the retail curve. If you're lucky, you can get your donuts right about here. This is as fresh as they come. Krispy Kreme also carries on the tradition of giving away free donuts to those in line when the hot light is on. The rest of the donuts now get a slow ride around to the other side. This is the cooling tunnel. You wouldn't want to pack the donuts up when they are still warm. The glaze needs to fully harden. A Krispy Kreme worker is stationed at the end here. They either go into boxes or on trays ready to sell to hungry customers. This type of donut is the Krispy Kreme Original Glazed, the most popular donut. But as we saw earlier, they have quite a few different types of donuts. So how are these made? Well, first off, some of these are just original glazed with a little bit of extras. After the cooling tunnel, some of these donuts are dipped by hand into colored icing. And don't forget the sprinkles. For some of the donuts, the glazed waterfall is turned off. For example, the sugar donut. This one doesn't have any glaze on it. The ones that have a fruit filling on the inside, these don't have a hole in the middle of the donut. Do you remember the step at the beginning where the dough comes out of the extruder? The machine can be modified so it makes the donuts without any hole. Besides that, the process is pretty much the same. After the cooling tunnel, these donuts are picked up by hand and filled with a special filling. The extruder can also make special shapes depending on the occasion. The other donuts, such as maple bars or fritters, might require a little extra preparation by hand before being manually placed on the flights. Inside the proofer, the speed and temperature may need to be modified depending on the type of donuts being made. Some of the donuts don't need to rise at all. For these donuts, the proofer is actually rolled back so that the donuts can be placed by hand directly into the shortening. This is an incredible machine, but it doesn't just run by itself. Skilled workers have to be there to monitor every step of the way. Settings have to be changed. They can do that right here on the control panel. And just in case, they do have an emergency stop button. Hopefully, they don't have to use this very often. Right over top of where the donuts cook, they also have the fire suppression system. If something were to happen, the sprinklers are ready to put out a fire. Imagine designing a machine like this from scratch. The engineers had to understand many ideas and concepts first. Making donuts may not be your goal, but whatever it is, Brilliant can help. It's a learning platform for math, computer science, engineering, and even AI. Instead of just watching or reading, you get to learn the concepts by actually doing it. You learn to think, and you get to have a lot of fun while doing it. Before you know it, you've learned something new. I like the course called Scientific Thinking because it covers the basics of how things work, including several things you've seen firsthand in this video. You'll have a deep understanding of the concepts before the course is through. Brilliant has a lot of different courses to choose from, and they come out with new ones all the time. The lessons take just a few minutes, so you can do them whenever you have time. The idea here is to build a habit so that you learn a little bit every day. Try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Visit brilliant.org/JaredOwen or click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. My name's Jared. I think I'm gonna get some donuts now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.